what we're doing in these breakout sessions is a couple things. So first we will have 2 quizzes, which are very low pressure, but just kind of to test some of the knowledge and see if we're teaching things in the right way for the things that I just covered in the slides or the presentation in the last 45 minutes. And the 2 quizzes there are, there's one on the left here that says App Runtime Basics, which is basically testing the knowledge from the last workshop that I also covered in the review section of the presentation. And then the second quiz on the left here is Advanced Data Queries. And so both of these have just one question. There are multiple, you need to select multiple answers for each of these questions. So it's not a single choice, it's a multiple choice response. And for both of these, the question is the same, the component is different. And the question is, given that component, which of the following is not a possible sequence of render results? So you have this simple component here. You have to think about how this component is rendered when it's loading, when it has an error state, when it has a data state, etc., and what the possible sort of sequences of the render result is, the returns of this function. And then you select the ones that are not possible, that can never happen. So if you select those here, there should be more than one in this case. And the question is exactly the same, but the component is more complicated in the second quiz. So in this one, you have more options as well. It's a more complicated component, but the question is exactly the same. So you have to think about the logic of how this component works, how the hooks work, how the state changes work, the lazy property that we talked about in the presentation, and then select these options that are impossible. So the ones that will never happen with this component. And we're going to do that as a group in the breakout sessions that we'll start in a minute. We also have currently 2 tasks, and there will be a 3rd task coming soon. If people work quickly, let me know, and I'll make sure that I get that up for you. But there are 3 tasks that will be sort of assigned for this workshop. We'll have a little bit of time in the morning tomorrow to go over these with Q&A and to finish the submissions if you don't have time later today to work on them, but you're welcome to work on them both in the group session as well as independently after 1 o'clock or in about half an hour when we break for the day. So there's 3 submissions. If you were a part of the workshop in June, the process is identical, and the content or the logistics of opening a code sandbox and forking it and then copy and pasting the shared version of that code sandbox, which I'll show very quickly in just a moment, are the same. And then you just copy and paste the link for that code sandbox with your response into this submission box. So we have 5 in total here today. So the first is App Runtime Basics. It's a quiz. The second is Advanced Data Queries, another quiz. Both of those are multiple choice. And then we have 2 to 3 task submissions. So we'll start with, I'll announce the first 2, or I'll share the first 2, and then the 3rd one I'll share towards the end of this session. So the first one, second one, and 3rd one each have a space for their own response. Everybody has to submit these independently, but you're welcome to work on them as a group if you'd like during the breakout sessions or separately. You're also welcome to discuss, so long as you're not sharing exact answers, you're welcome to discuss questions that you have on Slack during this time. To find out what these actually are, you need to go to the Workshop 2 folder of this GitHub repository. So it's the same GitHub repository as the last workshop. It was shared in on the Academy website as well. It's under the resources there, I believe. And you can, yeah, let's see if we can actually show that in one of these. Where is this? Yeah, here we go. So it should be available here. So on the right side, you have the GitHub repository here. We're going to go there. And then click on Workshop 2. This has everything we're doing here. We're going to click on Advanced Data Queries, which is what the session we just talked about. It has some links, some information, has the slides that I presented. We'll be adding the recording at some point in the next day. And then we have 2 of the 3 exercises. So this first exercise here is pretty simple. There's a simple code sandbox that we've set up. You can click this link. And your task is to pick one of the advanced data query functionalities that we presented today, that I presented today on one of those slides. The slides are up here at the top again. And then just implement a component, literally any component that uses one of those features of the use data query hook in that code sandbox. So just to refresh, and there is, if you go back to the main page of this GitHub repository and click under resources, code sandbox, you can find a guide for how to use this code sandbox. I'm going to share all of these links in Slack as well so that everyone has them. So this is the code sandbox instructions, and it goes over in great detail how to use code sandbox, how to share the link that you need to submit that project. When you're ready to work on this particular exercise, so for instance, for exercise 1, we'll click this simple code sandbox link. It will then open like a predefined task or a predefined repository with all the code that you need for doing this project. If you then go, so the task again here is to use any advanced query technique from today's presentation in the advanced query component.js file. You can find that file on the left here, advanced query component.js. There's nothing in this component yet. You need to fill it in with a query and some advanced usage of use data query. Remember that there is a DHIS2 instance available to you. So if we go, it's also linked on that on the Academy site, and I'll also post it into Slack. But this is the URL that you're going to be using. So you can use that in your code sandbox. And I would recommend maybe to click this button on the top right here to go to pop this out into another page, but you can also do it right within the code sandbox. We're going to put that URL into the server box for this app. We're then going to use the login and password admin and district. Click sign in. If you, ooh. So this, obviously, the challenge here, the error here is that this component is broken and it doesn't work. So you need to fill that in. You need to fix it. That's why you're getting an error here, and you can see the details of why that is as well. Nothing was returned from the render, which is the correct error in this case. But once you've completed this project, this should show your application here as well. If you have problems with logging into the Academy instance or anything with Code Sandbox, feel free, don't hesitate to post in the technical support channel on Slack or reach out to me directly. With that, I think I'm gonna turn it over to Alice, who will spend a couple minutes to split us up into breakout rooms. We'll spend the next 30 minutes or so, 25 minutes, we'll say 20 minutes in those breakout rooms. You can do the quizzes together and then start to work on those 2 exercises. And then we'll reconvene for the last 5 minutes before 1 o'clock, before the top of the hour, to just go over what's gonna happen tomorrow